Welcome back to my podcast, you incredible human beings. Now, in this episode, I'm going to go over one of the most common complaints that we get when people are coming to join our High Performance Man program, and that is that they're waking up tired in the morning. I see this literally in every single business owner, every single guy who's in a management position or has a substantial amount of stress or pressure on them. It is incredibly common. It's incredibly common for several reasons. What I'm going to do in this episode is I'm going to break down the reasons why this is actually happening. I'm going to show you exactly why everything that you're trying right now isn't working. And then afterwards, I'm going to show you exactly what you need to do in order to fix it. Cool? Let's crack on in. So the very first thing that we need to look at when it comes to waking up tired in the morning is, why is this happening, right? We need to understand the roots so that we can fix it. Most people slap on band-aids. Most people do things like, I'll wake up tired, so I'll go smash a coffee, or I'll take a modafinil, or I'll take some form of stimulant, something to get us up and going. That is the worst thing that you can do, and I'll explain to you why. The very first thing that we need to look at is when we're waking up tired in the morning, it means that we haven't slept well the night before. You know when you go out camping or you go out on holidays and you have a really, really good night's sleep, the next day you wake up feeling recharged, refreshed, and energized? It's because you've had a good night's sleep. There are two things that you need in order to qualify for having a good night's sleep. Number one is duration. Number two is quality. Are you getting enough time sleeping? And then is the quality of that time sleeping really, really good? If you get 4 hours of sleep per night, you're probably not going to wake up feeling energized because it simply isn't long enough for you to recover. If you're waking up continually throughout the night, you're probably not going to wake up feeling energized because you're not getting into the correct sleep patterns or the correct sleep rhythms in order to be recovered and restored. The main thing when it comes to energy, what sleep does is on our brain, there's dopamine, right? You remember dopamine? Dopamine's a little neurotransmitter for motivation. It gives us cravings, but it also gives us energy. Dopamine's really, really important for our energy. Getting us up and going, getting us wanting to do stuff, wanting to crack into work. Dopamine is imperative for that. The way that dopamine works is dopamine floats around in your brain throughout your nervous system, and then when it bumps into something called the dopamine receptor, it binds, and that's when it has its effect. Does that make sense? So the dopamine molecule only works when it docks onto its receptor. When it docks onto its receptor, then it goes and starts working. Now, what happens when you're tired is that you get an increased amount of this stuff called adenosine. Adenosine, now you may remember this from year 12 PE, right? Do you remember adenosine triphosphate, ATP? Yeah, same stuff. So when adenosine's floating about, what it does as well is it binds onto the dopamine receptor too, which means that dopamine can't do its work. So what we would call that is it's competitive inhibition. So it means that the dopamine receptor can't bind dopamine, meaning it can't give you more energy, can't give you more motivation. Adenosine increases in number when you get tired, and also at the same time, it is reduced and gotten rid of when you sleep, and you sleep really well. Does that make sense? So in order for us to allow dopamine to work, in order for us to be motivated to have energy so that dopamine can bind on the dopamine receptor, we need to sleep so that we can reduce the amount of adenosine we have and clear it away from the receptors. Cool? So that's the first thing we've got to recognize. So in order to do this, we need to make sure that we're getting anywhere at least between 6 and 10 hours a night. If you're getting 10 hours a night, happy days. If you're getting 6 hours, that's going to be good, but you need to make sure you have the quality as well. So one thing I just want to also clear up there, I just said if you get 10 hours a day, happy days. You need to get 10 hours of good sleep. The most important thing with sleep is that it's good. If you're just lying in bed and you're dozing for 12 or 14 hours, you're still not going to feel restored, refreshed, or recovered. Right? I grew up with plenty of people who would just sleep literally all day and they'd still wake up tired when they woke up in the morning, right? They'd still wake up tired. They'd be spending 12, 14 hours in bed. But they'd be dozing, they'd be getting up, they'd be constantly interrupted, right? Anyone who's a parent, you'll know this. You can get 10 hours of sleep, but if you're woken up 6 or 10 times throughout the night, it's just not the same. So what we need to do is we need to make sure that we get the best quality of sleep as well. The greater the quality of sleep, the less time you actually need to sleep. So when I was working really, really hard and I was cranking the business, we were growing very, very rapidly. We were doing 30% month-to-month growth. So it's pretty big, right? When we were doing that, I was sleeping, what I was trying to sleep is the bare minimum that I needed to, but enough to make sure that I was recovered. So what I did is I made sure that I pumped up my sleep quality. The way that I pumped up my sleep quality was by taking reishi mushrooms, pumping a heap of melatonin, a heap of glycine, and taking lion's mane. Those are the 4 things that I was doing. And when I did this, I found that I get into a far deeper sleep far faster. I would also make sure that I'd be getting a heap of REM sleep, rapid eye movement sleep, so that the quality of sleep that I was getting was really, really rock solid. So if you want to to amp up your quality of sleep, make sure that you're getting enough deep and getting enough REM. Now, if you don't know how much or you don't know how to measure this, it's really, really easy. Go out and buy an Oura Ring, O-U-R-A, Oura Ring, and that will track it, or a Whoop band. Even Apple Watches do it. Apple Watches are pretty shit, but they still do it, right? It can still work. Any sort of biometric device will tell you how well you're sleeping and will give you at least a little bit of sleep data. But on that, one thing I want to say is that even with the Oura Rings, even with the Whoop bands, they're like 50 to 75% accurate at best, right? The Apple Watches, they can be even worse, right? It really depends from person to person. So what we need to do is we need to use these data, this data as it's kind of like a guide. It's not a total truth. And one of the things that we do when we're coaching people is that not only will we look at the Oura Ring score, but we'll also look at a heap of other metrics too to see if it all lines up. So it's a really good start, but it's not the be all and end all. Does it make sense? So going back to me, when I want to sleep hard, want to ramp up my quality, I take those 4 supplements I mentioned: reishi, melatonin, glycine, lion's mane. But on top of that too, I'd pump the air conditioner at night. Not always the best for long-term health, for a variety of reasons I won't go into today. But getting the room down to like 17 degrees is the best for your sleep, because you just drop into a much, much deeper sleep. I'd also make sure that I was wearing blue light blocking glasses before I went to bed. And then on top of that too, I always made sure that as I was going to bed, I wasn't stimulated, right? Like Soph and I would be winding down, we'd be having a really gentle chat. We weren't going into any deep soul searching or hectic, heavy conversations. Everything was just really wired around winding down for sleep. Because when you do that, your REM sleep will go up and your deep sleep will go up. So with these two phases of sleep, REM, you've probably heard of REM sleep before, rapid eye movement sleep. This is the phase of sleep I want you to think of the brain's restoring time. That's what I want you to think of. REM sleep is the time for the brain gets to restore, gets to replenish, gets to do all this thing. Deep sleep is when you're getting the physical restorative time where your body, your muscles, your joints, your bones, everything in there is able to be able to start winding down and start recovering and cleaning out. Does that make sense? And what we want to do is we want to make sure that we have a sufficient amount of these sleeps, both of these. What I would normally recommend is that at least every single night you get a combined 3 to 4 hours of deep and REM. Some people say, yeah, that sounds like a lot. And to be frank, it is. But when it comes to sleep, sleep is such a high reward task. It gives you so many benefits. Whenever you sleep well, you will wake up feeling refreshed in the morning. You'll be way more recovered. Your brain will be way faster. Your memory will be way better. Your testosterone levels will be higher. Everything in your life will be better. Your sex drive will be better. You will look younger. You will be smarter. Your IQ goes up. Everything, absolutely everything about your life gets better when you start sleeping better. Okay? So that's the first thing that we need to do. We need to make sure that we're sleeping better so that, first of all, we get all the bonuses that I just talked about then, but also so that we get rid of adenosine, so that it stops blocking dopamine from doing its work. And that will mean that when we wake up in the morning, we're going to be way more motivated. Okay? So that's the main reason why people get ramped up. Why when they're waking up in the morning, they can't get ramped up, they can't get energetic, and they can't get motivated, right? The next thing after this, a lot of people before bed will go and take a hectic sleep sack, like the one that I recommended. Even go harder, they'll take things like Phenibut, take things like GABA, even take things like Restovitz or whatnot, like hectic sleeping pills. And yet they still find that they can't wind down. If that's you, then this is going to be really helpful for you. If no matter what you do, you find that your head is still racing, you can't wind down for sleep, it's because you've already lost the game. The whole idea about optimizing your sleep so that you can optimize your energy for the next day, it actually starts the day before. Put it to you this way. If you're revving your body up constantly, you get a bit of momentum on, and you get like, it's like you're going, it's like you've pushed this ball all the way up the hill, and then eventually, like once you get going in your day, it's like you're rolling downhill. You know what I'm talking about? It's like you wake up slowly and it's a real grind to get your energy up, and then eventually your head just starts spinning, it starts rolling, and the rest of the day you're almost on autopilot. Does that sound familiar? What's happening here is that as the body gets ramped up, as our energy levels get ramped up through the day, because we're getting busy, we're getting into tasks, we're getting into work, we've got stuff to do. When you're answering phone calls from customers, you're putting out fires with employees or with your business, or you've got stress on and your head is going and you have to think. When that's happening, you're ramping your brain up, right? Now, whenever you ramp your brain up and you start getting yourself thinking really quickly, you shift yourself out of a state of rest and digest into a state of fight or flight. Now, you've probably heard me talk about these two things before, right? I'll just quick recap for those who haven't. The body has two states. There's a part of our nervous system called the autonomic nervous system, and it controls these two states. Rest and digest is when you're chilled, you're calm, you're focused, you're great, you're recovering, your body's functioning really, really super well. Testosterone levels are going to be peaking, like everything's going to be really, really good when you're in this state the majority of the time. Whenever you're in the sympathetic nervous system state, that's the stressed out state. That means adrenaline's up. That means cortisol's up. The stress hormone, that's up. Your brain's moving fast. So when you're stuck in fight or flight all the time, that's when you get burnt out. That's when you get anxious. That's when you get jittery. That's when you don't sleep well. You wake up tired. When we're working really hard throughout our day, we often end up veering into the sympathetic side of things, into the fight or flight side of things. And when we're in this fight or flight state, once it's got us, it's really, really hard for us to turn that off. So what we need to do is when we feel like we're moving into this fight or flight state, we need to turn it off early. And you're like, okay, James, well, how do I do that? Here's the easiest way. Number one, every hour to 2 hours, take 2 minutes to just go and check your state. Literally, I want you to close your eyes right now. Do this with me. Really, really weird task. Close your eyes, and I want you to relax your eyelid. And now what I want you to focus on is, are your eyeballs twitching behind your eyes? Can you feel them twitching? If you can, it means that you're a little bit ramped up and your brain's in this faster state, and maybe you're looking towards going into a fight or flight state. Whereas if your eyeballs are calm, they're not moving, they're not twitching uncontrollably, you're able to just relax your eyelids, you're not scrunching them up, you can just relax them. It means you're going to be in a much, much more relaxed state. So that's one really, really easy test. Next one, do some box breathing. Take a minute, breathe in for 4 seconds. Hold for 4 seconds. Breathe out for 4 seconds. Hold for 4 seconds. If you can feel a change in state by doing that, it means you've been getting ramped up. So if you have been getting ramped up and you've tested it by using one of those 2 really easy tests, here's what you can do. Number 1, keep doing the tests, right? Make it so that your eyelids just relax. Do some breathing, gentle breathing, until you can feel your eyeballs or your eyelids relax and your eyeballs stop twitching so much. If you're doing the breathing, you prefer that, do a minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes of box breathing, right? They're the 2 easiest things to start with. Next one, start taking your reishi earlier. Start taking your supplements, your nighttime supplements earlier in the day. Because what it'll do is, instead of you just getting more and more ramped up as the stresses of the day come on, as you take more calls, as you have more customers who need things from you, as you've got a million fires to put out, instead of getting ramped up, it'll kind of blunt you so that you'll come up a little bit and you'll be energetic and you'll be motivated, but then it never gets to the point where you become stressed or overwhelmed. Does that make sense? So taking your supplements earlier on in the day is an absolute king. The next thing after that is removing other stresses from your life. How do you make it so that look, I'll go into a little bit more depth here. There's 5 main stresses that we have. We have work stress. We have physical stress, like within our body. We have digestive stress, like the foods that we put into ourselves, foods, drugs, alcohol, that sort of stuff. Emotional stress, like relations with the people around us. And then resting stress, so we're getting enough rest and recovery. If we can make it so that we minimize the stresses on our body, right, it's going to be way easier for us to control our stress so that we can put up with all the stuff that we're going to get on a day-to-day basis. And here's the one thing I want to be totally clear on. I am not an advocate at all for a zero stress lifestyle. And I'll tell you why. It's because there's no growth. It's not fun. Like, can you imagine sitting on a beach all day, every day? It'd be fucking boring. I've done that, right? I've done that before. It's not fun. Everyone says it sounds great. Oh, wouldn't it be wonderful if you didn't have to work? Wouldn't it be wonderful if I could just kick back? No, it's fucking boring. Like, I can tell you right now, categorically, I've done that. Been there, done that, ticked it off. It's really not that great. Spent a few months in that position. All I wanted to do was get back and create something and build something. Don't pray for an easy life. Pray for the strength to endure a hard one. Or even better, don't pray for a stress-free life. Pray for the capabilities and for the systems to be able to deal with a high-stress lifestyle so that you can achieve, you can have fun, you can create, you can do all the stuff that you want to do, but you can then manage the stress. That make sense? So coming back to it, really easy way to make sure you don't get too wound up. Exercise every single day. For me, I love jiu-jitsu. I love strangling people. And look, maybe I'm a bit sadistic, but I love getting strangled myself. Masochistic, whatever one that is, right? I love jiu-jitsu. It's the best thing ever. You can't beat rolling around with lots of other sweaty men, right? Other people like running, going to the gym, do whatever you like. Make sure you exercise every single day. Eat well. Stop putting crap into your body. If you feel like crap, maybe stop putting crap in there. right? Let's use the old terrible example of the car, right? Everyone uses this example. Would you put crappy fuel into your car and expect it to perform really well? No, you wouldn't. So don't do the same thing with you. Drink more water. Make sure you get water in every single day. I recommend 50 mils per kilo of body weight every single day. People say, oh my God, that's so much. I'm 100 kilos. It's 5 liters. I'm like, dude, you're 100 kilos. 5 liters is literally nothing. 50 mils per kilo of body weight per day, every single day. Just do the simple things. Make some time for breathing. Make some time to do those tests that I talked about. Take the appropriate supplements when you need help. Okay? That is what you can do. Because when you start doing this, immediately you'll notice that you'll be able to switch off way earlier. Your brain will start shutting down when you want to go to sleep. You'll have a much, much deeper sleep. And then you'll wake up refreshed in the morning. And I tell you some of the things that people really screw up, right? Really the worst things that you can do when it comes to energy. Number one, drinking coffee. I know this sounds counterproductive because you're like, James, I've got no energy in the morning. So what do I need to do? I need to have a coffee. I need my coffee in order for me to wake up, right? Here's the thing. When you drink that coffee, you'll have 100, 200 milligrams of caffeine in it. One of my friends, right? Good friends, Ruben. I saw him the other day. Went out and caught up with him, had a really, really awesome chat. The dude had a fucking 4 shots in his coffee. He had a quadruple shot. I was like, I didn't know that was a thing. There is so much caffeine. There's about 240 milligrams of caffeine in that. You know what happens with that caffeine, right? Caffeine takes anywhere between 6 and 10 hours for half of it to be excreted from the body. It's something called half-life. You guys have probably heard this before when we're talking like about radiation and uranium and stuff, where people say it's got a half-life of 1,000 years. Well, caffeine in the body has a half-life of about 10 hours. We'll just call it 10 hours, right? Nice round number. So that means if I was catching up with my mate at 10 a.m., 10 hours later, half of that caffeine is still working. So he has 240 milligrams at 10 a.m., and that means at 8 p.m. at night, still 120 milligrams working, right? So if you do the maths on that, let's go another 10 hours later, right? After 8 p.m. 10 hours later again. What's that bring us to? 6 p.m. 6 a.m., sorry. 6 a.m., there's still 60 milligrams working within the body, within the system. That makes sense? Now, obviously, that 10 hours doesn't apply to everybody. Some people a little bit more, some people a little bit less. But you get the drift. Whenever you have caffeine in the system, we're ramping ourselves up. What caffeine does is it comes in and it gives us a burst of adrenaline, gives us a little cheap, fake burst of dopamine, and gives us a little burst of cortisol, right? What happens is we're in such a stressed out state generally in the way that we live. Seriously, look at it. From the moment that you wake up, you've got phones which are stimulating you. You've got radios which are stimulating. You've got partners, kids, you've got lights, you've got everything is going on. Other people when driving on the way to work and everyone's honking and one arm on the horn, one arm out the window. There's constant stress, there's constant stimulation. Adding more caffeine into that doesn't work. It's not what you need. You don't have low energy because you're understimulated. You have low energy because you're overstimulated and you can't switch off. Taking caffeine, drinking coffee, yes, it tastes great. I'm not going to lie. I used to consume a heap of caffeine. I used to smash coffees every single day. I was one of those fancy hipsters, right? I only drank espressos, and I love those thick little espressos. I absolutely adored those things. And I used to get really into my coffee. I'd go into the things that was like, they call it fruity bodied, right? It was, I drank that coffee, right, where you'd see the hipsters in there and you could swear some of them was going to ask it to be infused with unicorn semen, right? Like that's the level of coffee that I was into. And I love the taste of coffee. I get it. It tastes amazing. But it's simply not good for you whatsoever if you want to have more energy, if you want to be more productive, and if you want to perform at your peak. Because it will categorically overstimulate you. And on top of that too, not only will it overstimulate you, but it'll start killing your sleep so that you wake up more tired the next day. That makes sense? Caffeine, stimulants, anything like that, terrible, terrible idea. Do not do it. The next thing that people try, right, in order to get more energy is going on holidays and using breaks and stuff like this. Now, I'm not going to tell you not to go on holidays because I go on holidays. I love holidays. It's brilliant. But using your holidays as the only time to recharge and to get more energy, it's like you burn yourself out, burn yourself to the bone, and then go on holidays for a week or 2 weeks and then recover. Terrible way to do it. Why? Because over time, you just continually make yourself more and more burned out. Instead of needing and requiring a holiday to recharge, right? Make it so that you always recharge and then your holiday is just an incredible time to spend with your family, with your kids. Who's ever done this before? I've done this. I'm guilty of this. I'm not judging you guys. Who's ever done this before? You've gone out on a holiday, you've literally slept the whole time. You haven't hung out with your kids, haven't hung out with your missus, haven't hung out with your friends. All you want to do is just sleep all the time and just recover, right? Now let's look at the second order consequences of that. You start fighting more with your family. You start feeling guilty that you didn't spend enough time with them. You start feeling bad, negative. You start feeling like you have to make it up to them. You start feeling like you owe them. You start feeling like you're in debt to them. Everything gets worse. You start having more fights. You start having more arguments. And then in turn, when you come back from the holidays, you're not actually closer and more connected with them at all, right? In fact, you feel just kind of guilty and kind of shitty. So instead of feeling that way, make it so that you're recovering beforehand. Have an incredible holiday with your family. Do everything that you want to do everything you want to do. Be super energetic. Be on top of the world. It's a much, much nicer way to live. And all that you need to do in order to make that happen is just make sure that you're sleeping well. Drink a little bit less caffeine. Put a little bit less shit food into your mouth. And make sure that you're exercising really, really well every single day. That makes sense? It's pretty simple, right? Now, if you guys want to learn more about this, if you want to have more energy when you wake up in the morning, if you want to wake up feeling fucking vibrant, if you want to be able to conquer life every single day, you don't want the stresses, the day-to-day stresses, the day-to-day grind to get you down, what you should do right now is go and book in a game plan call. What we do in these calls, we do two things. Number one, we find out exactly what is going wrong with you right now and why you're not feeling energetic, why you're not waking up pumping the world, why you're not waking up ready to go and dominate. We find out the root reasons for this, exactly what's going wrong. And the second thing after that we do is we form a game plan to make sure that you can go and conquer that. Now down below, you should see a link, right? So click on the description, you should see a link where you can go and schedule one of these calls. If you can't see it, just shoot me a message, james@jcfcoaching.com, right? But click on the link, go in and schedule a time. Because what we'll do in this is we'll make sure that you actually have all the processing, you have all the tools in place to make sure that you absolutely dominate. I've coached thousands of guys through this, right? So what I'm talking about, right? This whole video, right? I've done this thousands of times with thousands of dudes. Like this stuff is not difficult for me, but at the same time, you've never done it before, so I don't expect you to be a master in it. Right? We've done this literally on thousands of guys, and every single time, what it always comes back down to is when you don't have energy in the morning, when you're not waking up feeling motivated, every single time, it always comes back down to, number one, you're doing some stuff which is just holding you back. It could be drinking caffeine, right? It could be utilizing your holidays to recover when you should be spending time with your family there. It's always something really, really simple. Or you're eating a bunch of food which is just not serving you well. So we go through and we find all that sort of stuff. And then after that, what we do is we look at your nervous system, we look at your body, look at the way we're functioning. We look at your hierarchy of health. We go through and we map out a game plan on what you need to do in order to get from where you are right now, where you're not waking up feeling good, not waking up feeling the way that you want to, and make it so that every single day you're peaking full of energy, you're feeling absolutely incredible, and you can go out and you can dominate life. You can go kick life in the teeth. All right, so just go and click on down below in the link, schedule a game plan call, and what we'll do is we'll get you sorted so you can go out and dominate. I hope this was helpful for you guys. I'll speak to you all soon.